It was, and then it was all over Facebook.
Boredom.
Didn't mean it to go that far.
It's almost like, it's there, but not because that's scary, right? Should have known, probably didn't know. Maybe.
Yeah, and what's, but people of all people have design, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, everybody, we're live.
But ended than him.
Right, Heather?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone, to the November meeting of the City of Bowling Green's Planning Commission. We're glad you could make it tonight. And Jamie, if you call the roll, please.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here.
Okay, thank you. We have the minutes from the last meeting that have been passed out ahead of time to all of us, and everybody, I think, has probably had a chance to review those. Are there any corrections or additions or deletions from those minutes? All right, then those minutes are approved. Next is lobby visitation. I'm going to make a guess that you don't want to talk to us. Okay. Formally, if anybody wants to speak at lobby visitation on anything that's planning commission business, but not on tonight's agenda, now is your chance. Okay, I'll close the lobby visitation. Before we get to the agenda, I do want to comment to the other members of the planning commission that I've been to the last two city council meetings where after the meeting, they had work sessions dealing with the zoning update that we spent a considerable amount of time on. And I think you can all take some good feelings about the comments from members of city council, several comments saying that they were very appreciative of the work we did and felt that we went a long way toward making their job easier. And they have basically been going through the recommendations we made, and they have agreed with most of those recommendations. And one or two of them, even when they didn't agree, they had the same purpose in mind. What comes to mind is that one of our recommendations, I know, was that there be a definition for community garden, the zoning code update. And city council members, it was clear that they wanted to encourage community gardens as much as possible. And currently there's no such definition or limitation. It's open territory out there for community gardens, and they were afraid that any definition would end up being somewhat restrictive in one way or another. And they didn't want any restrictions on people's ability to start a community garden, so they just elected not to go along with that recommendation and not have such a definition. But their purpose was the same as ours, which was to promote community gardens. So we've had a month or two to digest it now, and I think we can all take some pride in the work that we did and that it turned out pretty well.
Thank you for attending those.
Oh, sure.
To uphold our ideas.
Well, a couple times they wanted to know what we were thinking when we passed something, and I was able to help with that a little bit. Will Earhart was the second such council meeting, and he did the same thing. So they're well on their way. I expect the zoning code update to be adopted in a fairly prompt order. The feeling I get from members of city council is that they're all in favor of it, basically. And it's just a matter of getting to the final product. But I would be surprised if it doesn't pass with a unanimous vote in a relatively short order.
Will they have another working session on Monday?
That I don't know, Heather.
Well, I was going to give a report on that, but it will be on Monday, November 21st will be their next work session at 5:30
Okay.
prior to their 7 o'clock meeting.
November 1st, 5:30. Okay, with that, we can move to the agenda. And tonight we have a bit of an unusual situation that has not come up since I've been on the planning commission, but we've been asked to review an update to the master plan, of course, having to do with the bicycle paths in the city. And Heather, did you want to say something to start us off there? Or I know
Sure. Well, I gave you a letter with a little bit of information about that. It did start with the recommendation from City Council for the commission to review this map. It is noted as figure 2.14 in the transportation section of the comprehensive plan, which we have on our city webpage if you want to refer to that old one, current map. There has been quite a bit of work done on this map by Manikin Smith, who did the original transportation plan. And basically, they have gathered traffic volumes, crash statistics, worked with the city's Bicycle Safety Commission. I gave you a copy of a presentation that Manikin Smith did for City Council. And that gives a good background, I think, of where they looked at destinations where people like to go on their bike most frequently. Schools are an obvious spot, parks, et cetera. So I also wanted to hand it over to Joe Fawcett, who is more, I guess, has more in-depth knowledge on the process if you have any specific questions about this. But otherwise, we gave you the map. Hopefully that was a little bit easier to read than a little piece of paper. And of course, it's hard to read on the screen, but at least, again, gives an idea of visually what that looks like and then the different colored paths and what they represent. So basically, you would be giving a recommendation or any additional comments to City Council for their further review and for them to hold a public hearing.
Okay. Joe, do you want to say something?
Do I need to give my name and address for the record? Joe Fawcett, 304 North Church Street. So everything Heather said is spot on. The previous bicycle treatment map that was in that is currently in the master plan was lacking some specificity. It also needed updating for some of the destinations, as well as, I think, reflecting current trends when it comes to people's transportation habits and bicycling in general. So we engaged with Manikin Smith to help us update that. It included a community-wide survey about where people are riding their bikes, how comfortable they feel riding their bikes on the road, and to help kind of dial in the final product. The one you have before you updates some of the plans that the city has gone forward with in recent years as it pertains to shared use paths. So the green path in the north is a planned shared use path connecting the community center to the high school campus, as well as up to Cogan's Crossing subdivision. A part of that has already been installed. It's that little orange spot right there at Berman Bishop. And the rest of that will get constructed over the next few years. The engineering department was successful in obtaining $1.2 million for that project. And City Council and the mayor are going to use a portion of the ARPA funds to fund the remaining portion. It also reflects the shared use path across I-75, as well as reflecting the planned shared use path on South Main Street from Gypsy Lane approximately up to Napoleon on the west side of the street. That is planned to be constructed with South Main Street in 2025.
And by shared use path, Joe, what does that mean?
A shared use path is a separated 10-foot asphalt path.
Shared between pedestrians and
Everything.
bicycles?
You
And
name
on
it.
the height of the cars and everything is shared by.
Not cars.
Oh,
Nope. Bicycles, pedestrians, the like.
okay.
So this is where there is no sidewalk.
Correct. Typically, you'll see a shared use path in lieu of a sidewalk.
I can give you some examples if it's helpful. So we're trying to do this more and more with private development projects. And this gives us another tool of, here's this map and here's where we would like that multi-use path to go. But the new assisted living facility being constructed on South Dunbridge, they are going to do a multi-use path. And that'll eventually be connected to apartments to the north that the rezoning was approved. Additionally, the FedEx project that's under construction right now, they will have a multi-use path also. So we're really trying to connect those different dots as we get those private development projects in the queue in our department when we're reviewing those site plans and issuing permits.
And are those paths wider than a typical sidewalk
Yes,
because they're shared?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. It's made for essentially
So there's
bidirectional
room for
movement.
pedestrians to walk and somebody to ride their bike.
Right. Or two bicyclists kind of passing each other.
Who
That's
has
one.
who has the right of way?
Well, I'm saying like if one bicyclist is going this way and the other one's going this way,
Yeah.
10 feet will give enough room for them to pass each other.
But between pedestrians and bicycles, is there any distinction between who has a right of way there?
I don't know. I would imagine it's, typical traffic rules.
Yeah, I'm not sure that
so-
it matters. I just
Yeah.
wonder. Yeah.
So to kind of piggyback off of what Heather said, when we start adding in these projects along corridors, this gives us a good target area for, putting the rest of the path in. So the city would certainly look at actively seeking funding opportunities to then finish it up and start connecting in the dots. From the staff's perspective, we will utilize this in our planning process when it comes to future paving projects. And when we start looking at a particular road, we'll reference the map to see if there's a bicycle treatment called for it. And if there is, then we'll incorporate it into the plan. If it's one of the I guess purple lines, we would start looking at a little bit more detail of traffic volume, crash statistics, and the like to identify the most appropriate treatment. One of the byproducts of the Mannequin Smith study was to help identify different reference guides and help kind of work through some of that. The one that comes to mind is the ODOT multimodal planning guide, which just came out this year, ironically. So it kind of helped us out with having a consultant look through that and give us some recommendations.
Well, I know the two things I was impressed with about this particular plan was the depth of the study that went into it,
Right.
put it together. Like a lot of effort was made to be responsive to bicyclists' needs, safety, and all the things you want to take into consideration. And I was also impressed with just how many bicycle paths there are or are envisioned for
Right.
the city. When you look at this map, they're all over the place.
Great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, there's no area of the city that is a barren area with nothing.
Right.
There's a lot of bicycle paths being considered.
Yeah.
Or shared use paths or sharrows or whatever, different kinds of treatments, but there's a lot of roads involved.
And I think they do it. I think Mannequin Smith did a pretty good job of identifying corridors and then using our slower speed, smaller residential roads to kind of connect into these different paths.
Here's one subject, Joe, you can talk about for a minute, perhaps. I noticed that there was an intent to have a downtown bicycle bypass route
Right.
rather than going right through the center of
Right.
town.
Right. Mannequin Smith, that's a carryover from the previous map and transportation plan. I would say that Bowling Green is somewhat uniquely organized in that there's really two front entrances in all the downtown areas. There's a number of bicycle parking facilities on the back end of the downtown businesses and area, with again slower speed, small second residential roads kind of linking in. They recommended that we keep that in place and not put something in the downtown. So
Do you know, as far as timing, we've got some future planned and then a couple potential projects. Is it set up where you finish all the future planned projects first before you get to a potential option? Or and I ask because I really like the plan and I'd like to see it happen sooner than later.
Mhm.
And if you can't ever get to the purple lines until you get done with the green and the green, then how long do we have to wait? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Phasing plan, basically what you're asking for is a phasing plan to get it done, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer.
No, it's okay.
Um,
Yeah.
A lot of that comes down to the obvious, which is money.
Yep.
What I can say is the one in the north and the one in the south that I mentioned already have funding. I'm hopeful that the one connecting essentially Krim Elementary to Carter Park could get some funding here in short order. Mannequin Smith I just signed a contract with them yesterday or 2 days ago to do some preliminary engineering work on that to identify, right
In
away needed, the
anticipation that you'll
construction.
get the funding.
Right. So, and I think it also kind of catapults us into some other areas that kind of open up additional grant funding opportunities. So that's a long way to say someday.
I would think the order of things would also be somewhat dependent, as referred to earlier, when paving projects
Right.
are done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say by and large, they'll probably correspond with each other.
I would think.
But the trail up north is a good example. They don't have to be connected. They originally were one big project with Brim Road paving. The paving portion kind of fell off and then came back. But we proceeded forward with the path regardless of the paving. So
When you mean paving, you mean fixing the sidewalks or just paving?
paving the roads.
Yeah, so one of the problems I kind of encounter is, so I ride my bike on the Slippery Elm.
Mhm.
And I, once I'm there, once I park it from the Montessori parking, it's awesome.
Mhm.
But to reach there is a problem, right? Because I have to ride from, and the sidewalks sometimes are wonky.
Mhm.
And, and in the winters, people don't clean the snow. And then,
Off of the Slippery Elm.
yeah, no, so I live on Main Street, from Main Street.
Yep.
So, so I have to put my car, I still ride my bike.
Sure.
But like, I've seen people put the bike on their car and then park and then,
Gotcha.
and to me, it's like, it would be far more convenient. To me, it would make sense if you're just riding it from your home, you ride all the way to Slippery Elm and come back, right? And I think that idea will become a habit, then you are, for sure. So, for sure, if I can reach to Slippery Elm, I can also go to my office and come back. I won't stop somewhere between because the sidewalk is, and there are some bad sidewalks,
Mhm.
Yes, there are.
I feel like walking, biking, and now with the leaves and everything, you don't know how wonky it is, right? So I
Yeah.
feel like this is all good, but is this in synchrony to fixing the sidewalk as well? Because that also is a part of making the city bike friendly rather than just have.
Sure. Yeah. So I wouldn't say they're like totally separated. We're not going to just do one and not the other. The city's been addressing sidewalks for a good while. I wish I had mixed statistics from the last council meeting because he laid out the linear feet of sidewalk that were replaced this year. So yes, sidewalks will continue to stay addressed. They're just not like all in one.
Are sidewalks getting some of that ARP funding money we have available for that?
Not as of today.
Joe, I have a question, and it's just for point of interest because I don't even know how to ride a bike. I've never ridden a bike in my life, so. But I'm from New York, so you don't ride bikes in New York City. My question is, I always thought it was illegal to ride a bike on the sidewalks in Bowling Green.
It's illegal to ride your bicycle in the downtown area only.
Okay,
Bicycles are a little bit unique in that they can legally operate on the sidewalk as well as the roadway. If they're in the road, they're considered a vehicle, just like a car. If they're on the sidewalk, they're considered a pedestrian, just like you're walking. I will tell you that the number of bicycle and car incidents increases when you ride your bike on the sidewalk. Some of the crash statistics that I looked at recently in conjunction with this study kind of showed that, as well as when we had Bikes from Columbus come in, a bicycling nonprofit, to kind of help with our bicycle education program. That was a heavy focus for them, was to not ride your bike on the sidewalk. I grew up here. That's exactly how I rode my bike, literally everywhere. But learning from what we call now the what are the bicycle tours that Amanda gives? She's gonna yell at me. It's teaching people how to ride comfortably on the street. It's a great program. I'd highly recommend it. If I can only remember the name.
Yeah, I feel safer, to be honest.
Slow roll.
I will say that people riding bicycles on the street, and I heard this when I was telling some people, as I said, I don't ride a bike, so I don't know. But as I was telling people about this and this map, their concern was, do we do enough to educate the bicycle riders that they do have to obey the traffic laws? Because I've even experienced, you come to a four-way stop and the bikes just keep going. So is there a method something that's done that says you ride a bicycle, you're a vehicle, so you have to obey the same laws as everybody else?
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that we could always do more. But the city, we do take a concerted effort with the communications going out to educate both the vehicular traffic as well as the bicyclist on the rules of the road, emphasizing that very point, as well as the educational programs through the slow roll of teaching people while you're riding your bike on the road, you are a vehicle and you need to operate as such.
Maybe we could have signs somewhere along on these bike trails that would say that when you're riding your bike, you're considered a vehicle or something that would constantly remind them.
Yeah, so the signs are largely governed by the Manual Uniform of Traffic Code Devices. It's a manual that's adopted by ODOT. So if you can get that by ODOT, Judy.
I'll give it my best shot. I might even walk a bike out there to
There you
talk to
go.
them.
You do that.
I wanted to add to the conversation because it's a great conversation that leads us really back to this map. And my point being, I read a lot of planning articles and a lot of the, people that complain about cars and the cars that complain about bikes. And I think it's an interesting point that really goes back to roads weren't created for bikes. They were created for the vehicle. And that's why we have all these highways and large right of ways. And so I think having this map is such an important tool because we're trying to plan for, back to our ordinance from city council, is complete streets. And so trying to make our roads usable for all users, not just the vehicles. So I think that's a great point, Judy. It just shows all the different users what they can and can't do, but also, trying to make our roads the best we can for all users within our resources that are available to us. So I think we're trying to do that with this map. And then again, as we look at private development and our future paving projects. So I think it's a great tool that we can use.
And I'll say that I'm glad to hear that you said the educational pieces for both the pedestrian, bicyclists, and the drivers. Twice in the last probably 30 days, I drive about the same way every day, and there's been a bicyclist on the sidewalk, and I'm coming up to a stop sign, and I see the bicyclist late. My eyes, when I come to a stop sign, are on the road. I'm looking for cars on the road. I'm going to turn whatever, and it's not on the sidewalk first. And one was, it wasn't super close, but like he came and he didn't stop, and he went right across the sidewalk, right across the stop sign, and I was there, and so the education should be for the drivers too. So I was glad to hear that there's both.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions for Joe?
Do we register bikes there?
I'm sorry.
Do we register bikes?
The police division has a bicycle registration program.
I think that could add to it too, because once you register your bike, it's like having a bike ride, like psychologically. Yeah, I've been tracked somehow, though you're not tracking.
Yeah.
Miss a signal. I know some cities do that.
Yeah.
And there's like $5 fee. You don't have to pay it, but if you want to pay it, goes into the bicycle fund, other stuff. So, and they also have a history of stuff, but kind of give some more tracking.
I'm sure they probably emphasize it in Safety Town though, too, don't they?
Yes.
I would think.
Yes, they do. Although their bikes are.
Yeah, I
really
know.
low to the ground.
That's probably the bike I would be
Wheels.
riding, Joe. So be careful what you say.
No.
Anything else? Okay, Joe, thanks for your
Thank you.
input. Do we need a motion, Heather?
Yes, you would. Yes, please. Mhm.
Any other comments from members of the commission here? Well, I'm not hearing any complaints about the map and the way the lines are drawn there. I'm not a Judy's case. I used to bicycle a little bit. I'm not a bicycle recent years. But not as familiar with this type of thing as some of you may be. But like I say, I didn't hear any complaints about the map, so I'll assume it's to everybody's satisfaction. And I'll go ahead and make a motion that we recommend to city council that they adopt destinations map as it was produced to us for review.
I'll second it. Is the only non-bike rider here. I'll second it.
Okay, Heather, or I mean, Jamie, you want to call the roll, please?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you very much. That gets us to the report section of the agenda. And Judy, I bet you have a report for us tonight.
Oh, I have a report for you tonight. We had an extremely interesting and lengthy, we were running competitions at some of the planning meetings for the zoning board. We had 6 requests for variances. The first one was Scott Gagne, and that was tabled from the previous month. So it was brought back, and his request for a variance was to allow the construction of a 16-foot by 28-foot addition, roof overhang already constructed, which would encroach 11 feet into the required 30-foot setback from the rear property line to the south and 1 foot into the required 25-foot front yard setback, corner lot, front yard that faces Brim. A variance was also requested to allow the construction of a 6-foot rail, a 6-foot tall fence, which was already constructed, to be located in the 25-foot front yard setback, front yard that faces Brim Road, which would be 2 feet taller than the 4-foot maximum allowed. And we happen to believe that he really did not know that he shouldn't construct those things without a permit. And we did grant the variance. The second request was Stephen and Carla Meredith had requested a variance to allow the construction of an approximately 18-foot width ranges from 12 feet to 18 feet by 64-foot driveway to be located at 305 South Enterprise Street, which was going to encroach 3 feet into the required 3-foot setback from the side property line to the north. And we also granted that request. The next 2 were David Wilson, a name which I'm sure is familiar to everyone on this board. On behalf of Mauer Rentals, his first variance was he requested a variance to allow the construction of a 55 by 7 foot by 51.5 foot driveway and parking area already constructed, which would encroach 3 feet into the required 3-foot setback from the side property line to the north and the rear property line to the west of 903 Enterprise. His second request for a variance was the same request, and it was for 907 North Enterprise. After some discussion, both requests for variances were turned down, and we'll remain to see where that goes.
Heather, what happened?
They have the option of going to Court of Common Pleas and having it overturned. The fear of the zoning board at that was that there was not adequate drainage. It was 2 separate rentals that he was looking, 2 separate homes that they was going to put one blacktop driveway in with not enough drainage. So
If he doesn't go to the court, they don't go to the Court of Common Pleas.
he's going to have to redo
I'd
it.
say they will have to redo
Yeah.
that driveway.
Yes,
Correct. I have to come into
Yes.
compliance.
yeah. The 5th one was Norman Holly of Holly Properties Management Company. He had requested a variance to allow to construct a 26-foot by 32-foot addition to an existing garage to be used as a single-family residence, which was going to encroach 12 feet, 8 inches into the required 30-foot setback near the rear property line to the south at 145 Dixie Street, which is the west of and behind 702 South Main Street. And that is identified as parcel number B08-510-25021-8021-000. That request for a variance was granted. The 6th and final one was extremely lengthy and interesting. Laurel Burrell at 414 Pine Valley Drive had requested a variance to allow the construction of an 18-foot by 25-foot 6-inch addition to the existing accessory building, which would encroach 3 feet 6 inches into the 10-foot required setback to the side property line to the south and 12 feet 6 inches into the 20-foot required setback from the primary structure. The existing accessory structure encroaches 1 foot 9 inches into the 10-foot required setback to the side property line to the south. We were only ruling on this variance. And after some discussion and some PowerPoints, this request for variance was granted. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Points, huh?
Beg your pardon?
PowerPoints, eh?
Yes, a 48-page PowerPoint that was cut off after page 2.
Okay. Thank you for that report, Judy.
You're welcome.
Heather?
Thank you for the privilege of serving on the zoning board. It's always exciting.
Heather, you have a report for us?
Sure, here's my one-page PowerPoint.
I do have.
Hopefully
copies.
much more simple than that meeting. So our permit status, we are down approximately 17% permits. So we've issued 328 so far this year compared to 397 at this time last year. We've had 17 single-family housing starts compared to 21 at this time last year. We've have one multifamily project we're reviewing right now compared to 0 at this time last year. 0 commercial last year, but we've had 3 commercial so far this year, and then 3 industrial this year compared to 0 industrial and 0 institutional for last year and this year. So I would say our commercial and industrial projects are very robust. Residential, not so much. My guess would be, with the inflation the way it is, it's really problematic to consider projects right now for families or households. So as far as new commercial industrial, we have literally just issued permits for 3 pretty large projects. So Wood County Hospital is building a new pharmaceutical distribution warehouse at 2231 Venture Drive. That's over in Innovative Tech Park. Hartung Brothers is doing a pretty large tank expansion, which is they're right now at 815 South Dunbridge Road. And then we just issued a permit for an addition for the Wood County Justice Center, which is 1960 East Gypsy Lane Road. Under review, we have Caliper Collision, which is a new building on South Main Street, right adjacent to Home Depot. OPM of Finley, which is all size storage. We have plans for an addition there of storage units. That's 2041 Victory Lane. And then we just received plans for an industrial speculative building, which would be at Woodbridge Business Park, actually a new street there. And then Summer Grove Apartments on South Main Street, apartment complex, about 96 units there. That is under review. We just received updated plans of Stonebrook Estates, expanding that subdivision. So those are still being reviewed. And then we already touched on the zoning code process that continues. So far, council's held 2 work sessions, and their next one would be November 21st, 5:30. And then Downtown Forward, we told you about that. I think our last meeting's up September, and they have held 2 community feedback sessions on October 18th and 20th. I did give you a copy of their webpage if you want to follow that. That actually has all the comments from those public engagement sessions online that I think might be interesting for you to look at if you have a few minutes. As far as other updates, 328 East Court Street, that local historic designation of that property with the historic overlay zone, that will have a public hearing by City Council also on November 21st at 6:45. And then just a heads up, I attended the annual Heritage Ohio Conference. That is actually was in Toledo, which is kind of nice. It can be all over Ohio. So it was nice. It was kind of in our backyard, and it was a very interesting conference surrounding historic preservation and what's going on in the state. And then right now is our planning and zoning. I guess you'd say we have a lot of sessions in the winter for whatever reason and fall. So I have those coming up November 18th and December 2nd, one in Dayton and then one in Toledo. So I will bring back any useful information to you if I hear of any, and hopefully I will. That's it, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Heather? Okay, thank you. With that, is there anything else for the good of the order tonight? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Joe seconded. I don't know who yelled out first to make it. Take your pick, Jamie.